Am I the butthole for refusing to do a paternity test on my children? My ex-husband and I have 3 children. It was a difficult split as he left while I was pregnant with our twins and he tried to make everything as difficult as possible. He and his wife are wanting me to do a paternity test on the children as they are disputing that our youngest is his and he no longer wants to pay child support for her. Him wanting to reduce his child support has been an ongoing issue. For the last 5 years, he hasn't had a problem regarding the paternity of any of our children. He's now stating that he doesn't think that our daughter is his and that I have cheated because she doesn't look like him. She doesn't look much like me either. She's got green eyes like I do. Both of us are pale with light-colored hair and eyes. Our daughter has dark hair that is thick and curly. She looks mixed race and she's the only one who looks this way. Her twin brother looks like my ex-husband. My daughter looks like my grandmother who was mixed race and was white passing. I'll be honest that he and his wife do not get along. I mean, it is hard to get along with the woman who your husband left you for. She keeps trying to shove herself in my children's lives and acting like their mom. She keeps insisting that she's mama and they should refer to her as that. They have refused to call her that, which always ends at my ex calling me frustrated that the children won't give her respect. She's recently been pointing out that my youngest looks darker than her siblings and has been suggesting that my youngest isn't my ex-husband's. I'm close with my former ex's brother's wife, and she told me before my ex did that he wanted a paternity test and was going to stop paying child support for her. She's also said that ex and his wife are once again having money issues. This was something I had already suspected as he had stopped taking them on his weekends as he was having to work overtime. Before people tell me to document this, I have everything documented. I refuse to answer calls from him, which forces him to either text or email me so that I can keep conversation records as I don't trust him. After I found out about him wanting a paternity test, I told him that I wasn't going to consent to him doing a paternity test on the children and the only way he was getting one is if he took me to court. He told me that it was clear our daughter wasn't his and that she didn't look like her siblings. He argued that he couldn't afford court and I was holding his money hostage by forcing him to pay for a child who isn't his. He has now apparently been whining about me on Facebook about how I cheated on him and am forcing him to raise another man's child and forced him to sign the birth certificate. I didn't. He wasn't even there, but as we were still married I could put him on without him being there. I don't follow him. I had one of his friends try and confront me about it. I want my children to have a relationship with their dad and I feel like this is stopping them. Though on the other hand, I know there will be something else he, or his wife, takes issue with down the line. Am I the butthole for refusing to do a paternity test? Edit. I thought I'd put this in my post but I didn't. Really should have proofread this rather than posting in anger. My ex wants me to pay for the paternity test. He doesn't want to because of his financial situation, which is why I told him to take it to court and get a court-mandated one. I know if I was to pay for it then he would want another one because he'll think that I tampered with it as I paid for it. He did the same with when I had the house valued so I could give him half. He didn't like what the first person valued it at so had to get another. I know I haven't cheated on him and she is his. I know some didn't like me referring to her as my youngest. Both her and her brother don't like being referred to as twins or as one, so I don't refer to them as such. Since they were toddlers they have been very independent from each other and want to be treated as such. She is not my only daughter. My eldest is also a girl. Update: so I did not expect so many comments on my last post. After I posted in my frustration over the paternity test situation, my ex-husband, we'll call him Jim, and his wife kept trying to get me to consent to and pay for the paternity test. I refused to pay because I know Jim. When the result isn't what he wants he will accuse me of tampering with the results. When I kept saying no, they ran to whoever would listen complaining about me and how I was forcing them to pay for a child that wasn't Jim's. For those who may not have read my last post, the child is questioned is my youngest daughter and a twin. Jim does not contest that her twin brother is his. But apparently along with being a jerk over this, I'm also a cat. News to me. Honestly didn't think he was that much of an idiot, but here we are. Jim kept complaining to his dad, Mick, and brother about me and how I was being financially abusive by taking money from him for a child that wasn't his and refusing to pay for the paternity test. Now Mick and I get on very well. He adores his grandchildren, they also adore him, and I have never attempted to stop them having a relationship, unlike Jim who often attempts to weaponize the children. I get very well with Jim's family and we are close. His brother's wife, and I are very close. She's the sister I never had, only child problems. Mick asked if he was to pay for a paternity test, if I would allow it to happen. Mick explained that he wasn't accusing me of anything but he was fed up of seeing Jim and his wife drag me every chance they got. He understood why I was refusing and agreed with me. I agreed but stated that Jim should choose the company that the paternity test is done through and I didn't want to know which one was chosen. That way I wasn't involved. So we had the paternity test. Mick paid for all 3 children to be tested, and had them tested with the private company Jim chose and then a private company Mick's lawyer recommended. Mick explained he did this so that if Jim started arguing against the results calling them fake then Mick had another set to back them up. And what do you know? All 3 children are Jim's. Since we've gotten the results, Jim has tried arguing that they're wrong and that youngest definitely isn't his. He has also been taking to Facebook to complain about me and is threatening to take me to court for fraud. The man couldn't afford to pay for a paternity test. He definitely can't afford a lawyer to take me to court, but I'd like to see him try. Former Sil has been screenshotting some of his comments and sending them over to me, which we've been having a giggle over, especially since one of the things Jim has whining about is finding out I've been dating a former friend of his. I say former because he, along with some others, were cut out by Jim's wife. Jim's upset because I am alienating him from the children by dating someone new, coming from the man who left me when I was pregnant for his now wife, who keeps trying to insist she is mama to my children. My children only met my boyfriend for the first time this weekend, after we had been dating for a year. Before people jump to Jim's defense and claim I am alienating him, I've never stopped him seeing or communicating with the children. He's the one that decides when he's interested in being their dad. So yeah, unsurprisingly my children are Jim's. Jim's still an idiot. The children are happy as they're off to have a sleepover at their granddad's with cousins, while I get to have wine and spend the evening catching up with former Sil. Jim and his wife are still mouthing off on social media, but it's falling on deaf ears for the most part. Next story: I, 25F, am pregnant and my husband, 27M, suddenly wants to move back to Belarus. Suddenly he seems to think he has the right to make decisions for both of us. How do I manage this with a clear mind? My husband and I live in Sweden. I moved there with my family when I was very young, as my mother is Swedish. However, he only moved here about 7 years ago. We were together for almost 6 years, and we married each other about 6 months ago. I found out I was pregnant about 2 months ago. I'm about 13 weeks pregnant now, and everything seems to be going well. All our tests have been clear so far and I am healthy. My husband and I are both very happy, and I'm quite excited to be having a baby, although nervous. I was very nervous about pregnancy, hence why it was an accidental pregnancy, but so far it's been alright, other than the nausea. This was until my husband told me he wanted to move countries. I am still a dual citizen of both Sweden and Belarus. My husband also is. However, I feel no need to go back there. The last time I did was when I was 13. I've lost most of my Russian, and I don't like the situation over there. Most of my family is here, and I've always felt more at home here than I ever have there. My husband explained he had applied for a job there, and he thinks we would have a better life there, and so would our child. I got really upset. I told him that he can't just make this decision for the both of us, and that I don't want to go back there. It scares me. I don't want my child in that environment, and I like the Swedish schools and way of life more. I knew my husband missed Belarus, but I never thought he wanted to go back. He got annoyed at me, and said I wasn't thinking in the best interest of our child. I was honest, and said that if he made me go back there, that I would divorce him and do everything I can to go back home, and that he can't make me, and that I'm not going and I won't go. He yelled at me and said that he was my husband, and that it's not up to me to decide how our life will be. I told him that he never said that was how he saw marriage, and he was being archaic. He seemed to calm down, but later when we were sleeping together, he got far too aggressive and his hands ended up on my throat. I managed to push him away. He didn't hurt me, but I was worried about the baby. But he then started for some reason complaining about how dramatic I was being about this whole pregnancy, and I seem to think it makes me entitled to decide everything. And he wasn't even being that rough. He's never acted like this before. It's like he thinks he can control my life, and our future child's life. We're supposed to make decisions together, not just one of us. I'm starting to think I can't stay him. It's not just about moving countries. It's the way he seems to think he's entitled to decide my whole life just because he's my husband. I've always thought that men have no more rights to make decisions than women in a marriage, as that's the point of a marriage. We're together. My brain is a mess right now. I'd always thought I loved him, but now I look at him and I realize that I just can't do this if he carries on like this, and I feel so stupid for not seeing it before. I don't know if it's the hormones, or my own emotions becoming too involved, but I'm really doubting this right now. Update: I left a couple of days after I made my post. Thank you to everyone who advised this, because it did help me see straight, and I'm not sure I would have otherwise. I went to live with my parents for a little while until I could sort out another place to live, and I have now. I applied for divorce after that. Because he doesn't agree, there will be some time to see if it will be allowed. I am still legally married to him, but I'm hoping soon I won't be. I miscarried at 14 weeks. I don't know why. It might have been because I was stressed. I don't know. While it ended up being okay because my mother was there, it was still difficult. I did feel a bit of relief, but that made me feel worse after that. I've been very tired and crying a lot, but I think it's probably just because I'm having trouble sleeping, because all sorts of strange things keep happening to my eyes. So I need to try and get better at that. I have tried to see friends more, which I had stopped after becoming married, which is helping. I also got a new cat, although I was able to take the one we own together. I figured it might be a better replacement than the husband, and she's a lot more polite. He is angry at me. He thinks I did something to miscarry, which I don't think I did, but he thinks I did. Also that I'm a bad woman and I was cheating and those sorts of things, but I know I'm not, so it's okay. While I do feel a bit lonely sometimes, and I'm also a little paranoid which doesn't help, I don't feel any desperate need to be with anyone either. I also did realize after this that my hatred for my country is a little irrational, and although I don't want to go back, I am learning Russian again, which is nice. I am hoping things will become better. I'm not feeling completely hopeless yet, although the future does not seem very good. But I like my job, I like where I'm living, so things are not terrible. I am looking forward to having my last name changed back though. Next story: am I the butthole for supporting my husband's cruelty towards his bio child? My husband, 42M, and I, 36F, have a very solid relationship. We have been together for about 13 years, have no children but are very active on my nephews, 4M, Mark life. For some background, my husband has a child, 16F, Laura, with whom only my Mill and to some degree Phil have a relationship with from his nuclear family. The reason being she was conceived when her mom poked holes to the condoms. It was a whole drama about it and my Mill begging my husband to have a relationship with Laura, but he simply couldn't. He even had to get psychiatric help in order to be able to cope with it. The mom admitted she did it so he would stay with her due to responsibility, but it did not work. He pays child support because the law mandates it, but nothing more. I didn't hear about this news from my husband but from my Mill, and she emphasized that she liked me a lot and hoped I would be a good enough person and procure a relationship between my husband and Laura. I was flabbergasted and asked my now husband about it because my Mill made it seem so different than the truth. He explained he was going to tell me before we moved in together, and to be fair he kind of had already gave me little infos here and there, and explained the whole situation and even told me I could go to therapy with him and see the psych info if I wanted, but things were not like my Mill said. His sister confirmed this as well, and explained this issue was the reason she was not as close to her parents anymore. Things went okay-ish for some time and even the wedding went without issues. We all have several boundaries and Mill more or less respects them, although she still have constant communication with Laura and her mom. We have several cycles of very LC with her. But things went to overdrive once my Sil got pregnant with Mark. Mill started telling everybody it was not her first grandchild and all that cryptic stuff. My husband was so uncomfortable about it. She pushed for Laura to be involved in birthday parties, christening, etc. But we all said no. She also invited both of them to her birthday party a couple times and we simply did not attend. Now the new issue is that Laura has been so sad for not having the bio dad in her life. My husband said no and left immediately. I stayed while grabbing our stuff since I had brought food and told her it was not going to happen. According to my Mill, Laura just wants to know my husband since he is her real dad, and despite being okay with her stepdad, it's not the same. She said she will give her our address and contact info because she is desperate for a connection. I told her I would call the police on all of them. I said my Sil will be very upset with her when she hears of this and to not be surprised to get less access to Mark. Mill called my husband cruel and me a bad person for encouraging his cruelty towards an innocent child. I told her I understand Laura is innocent, but she most likely would not be asking the same if it was a woman who conceived in the same circumstances. Am I the butthole? Edit. I thank you all for your opinions even if you say we are monsters or cruel. I'm trying to keep up, but I think I need to clarify some things. I asked if am I the butthole not because I want to betray my husband but because I stand by him no matter what. The condom did not break and he was very into safe sex. She assured him she was on the pill but he wanted to be safer by using condoms. Yes, she admitted to poking holes when he asked her if she would consider an abortion and if not if they could co-parent because he really didn't want a relationship anymore. She admitted to it. Mill knows all of this. She is not in jail because Mill begged my husband to not report it and he just wanted it all over. My Phil is like Switzerland now. At the beginning he was up in arms until my Sil asked him if he would feel the same if it happened to her. Mill is on thin ice with Sil since she introduced Mark to Laura on a zoo outing without consulting Sil first. Mill is not allowed alone time with Mark anymore. He has to pay child support until Laura is 18 or done with education in the country we live. He already made sure to make a will leaving her the minimum allowed by law since you can't disinherit children in the country but you can leave them the least amount. Mill is very distraught at this since he had me and Mark as main beneficiaries. Husband does not want to meet Laura, give her a letter, etc. I am not going to make him do that. I do believe my Mill is pushing harder since Mark was born because my husband is amazing with him. We even took him on a trip recently and we are very loving towards him. We also spend a bunch on him because we own our place but it's all in my name for obvious reasons. I don't know if Laura knows, but I would never tell her because it is not my place and despite everything I think it is horrible to learn and worse from someone you don't even know. Update: I want to thank everybody that took the time to reply even if it was against us. You gave us the push we needed to clear the situation. I am sorry this is long. I showed my husband the post and after spending a long time reading the comments he decided enough was enough. Yesterday morning he texted my Sil and Mill telling them he would like to meet and have this over with. Mill said we could do it in the afternoon and that Laura was coming too. We all said okay. My Sil and Bill met us at the door because they didn't want to go in before us. It was really tense since the beginning. Laura tried to hug everybody but we asked her to please not. Then she tried to hug my husband and he was slightly less polite and asked her to not touch him. My Mill was very cheerful somehow and my Phil was just offering everybody drinks and snacks. He was like living in his own reality. We sat down and after what felt like the longest 5 silent minutes of my life my husband turned to Laura and asked her if she could please leave him alone. Laura responded that he was her dad and she will need his support when she goes to uni since she was planning to move to our city and it was very expensive and hard to find a place. She said she knew he owned his own place and that he clearly has money to spare so she was wondering if he would help her out. My husband said no, that he was already paying child support and will stop as soon as the law allows him to. She was upset but somehow kept going. She turned to me and said that at the end of the day what is my husband's will go to her since Mill explained the inheritance laws to her and she wanted to be in good terms with me for when we need to decide what to do with the house, etc. I just told her not to worry because the house is on my name only and there is already a will covering it all. Mill knew about the will but not the house situation. Laura was a bit taken aback and looked at my Mill like asking for help. She said that even if there is no future money she thought my husband was unfair to her and that she used to think he simply didn't want to be a dad but he is amazing with Mark and we even take him on trips. My Sil asked her point blank if she knew how she was conceived and she does. Laura knows everything and says that while it was not the nicest way her mom wanted her so badly that made it happen. She said Sil should understand because she has her cousin and she would love a relationship with him. My Sil was seething and Bill told Laura he will literally call the cops if she tries to get near Mark. She started crying saying that she wanted her family to love her and be as awesome as everybody is with Mark and that it is not her fault and her mom is not a bad person, she just wanted a family and my husband denied them that. My husband said that it was the lying and the deception that costed the relationship not him, that if there was an honest mistake things would have been different. He told her he will never be her dad and she needs therapy. He said that she could get a job instead of expecting him to pay for her life in the long term and that he is not willing to have contact after today. Mill started begging both her kids not to go and maybe do family therapy. They both said they are going NC with her and Phil is on thin ice. Mill is blocked everywhere. I guess this is it. NC with Mill from all of us. Sil and husband seem actually pretty happy with the decision. We had dinner together and the topic was dropped after a couple minutes and we focused on other stuff. I am sorry there is no Disney ending but this is for the best and I still support my husband's mental health above all. Edit. I think I would like to play a little devil's advocate regarding the money. When Mark was born we started being very active in his life. We have yearly passes to the zoo, get him nice things, pick him up from daycare twice per week, got him to Disneyland Paris, etc. I believe my Mill was showing her pictures and that is why it came out like this. Or at least it is my assumption of it. Her mom is not poor by any means, but she does have 2 other kids. Our city is very popular for student life which makes it that much expensive. My husband and I are not interested in having or not children on our own. We simply are ambivalent about the issue. I know it might have made Mill even more eager to have a relationship with Laura. We were giving her pocket money for some time but we have decided to stop that as well and let her figure things out with her pension alone. I don't think we will have anything else to update in this case other than if Laura or Mill come around Mark but I highly doubt this will happen. As much as we don't want a relationship with any of them these are a teenager and a pensioner, not criminal masterminds. Update 2 I want to start by saying, thank you again to the encouraging messages and an F to the ones calling us all monsters. We are humans and flawed as every single one of the rest. I thought the issue was over and dropped but it seems it is now. We had some weeks of bliss and chaos afterwards. We are all still recovering from it. Now to what happened to explode our life again and please keep in mind it brings me no joy. My nephew Mark turned 5 weeks after my last update. After so many messages from my Mill and Phil, my Sil decided to let them attend but told Mill she was not to bother me or my husband. My Mill didn't approached us once but kept staring at us and we decided to ignore her. The issue was that I kept holding my plump stomach and my husband kept being goofy about it. I am not pregnant. I have several intolerances to delicious yummy things that make me bloated but I misbehave and eat sometimes. My Mill does not know about most of them since they are age developed and we used to go yo-yo with LC with her so I guess she assumed I was pregnant. A week after Mark's birthday party is when everything went to hell. Laura came to my husband's office and made a scene. She was screaming at him how she couldn't believe he was starting over without taking care of his first child and many other insults and stuff. She was throwing office supplies and crying and making a whole deal so the office manager called the police and an ambulance. She also called me. By the time I arrived my husband was having a panic attack in his office and totally sure he was fired. I told him to not worry and I will sort it. I explained everything to everybody from coworkers, to police, to IMS. Laura was taken in for evaluation and the coworkers took a long lunch so my husband could leave without having the awkward walk out. I took my husband home shaking and as he was panicking and crying he said he felt unsafe. I took him to his psychiatrist and the psychiatrist was able to calm it and we also had a session together days later where he opened up more about what the mom did to him. This has been very expensive but worth it for sure. Laura was not really in trouble since the office manager agreed to let it go for an apology and payment. The mom, Laura's, was not having it. The moment she saw my husband at the station she went ballistic and my husband couldn't handle it and he had another panic attack. This woman is a fucking doctor but does not care for it. ATG the end she paid the fine and restitution to the office and took Laura home. As a little background, I would like to share something I recently discovered about my husband's relationship with Laura's mom. Whatever I thought, it was way worse. Will not go into details but during therapy it came out she even threatened him once with a knife. It has been really hard to keep it together Latelti. But explains a lot of my husband's reactions here. My Sil was so done with my Mill after it. She told her dad he either divorce her or she is cutting him too. It is still a 50-50 since Sil is literally Phil's favorite person but he has been married to Mill for like 44 years. My Bill took my husband camping and they had fun and kept him distracted. He has been mainly on sick leave since the incident. He is a manager so he would come one day a week and then get the rest of the week covered so he can recover. This was suggested by his bosses. Hey, all feel like they should have protected their employees better. My Sil, husband, Bill, and I had a disagreement due to Laura's expenses. I suggested to just get her a block payment and requesting she should get therapy but all of them say she should get nothing. I said I would be willing to pay for it but after the new revelations on my husband's relationship with the mom my Sil is even more up on arms against helping them more than we should. I do feel bad for Laura. I do. And I know the rest, husband, Sil, Bill, used to a little. Now, there is no way in heaven to make them help her. The last nice thing my husband did was convincing his bosses to not charge Laura and paying for the monitor she broke. Since his leave my husband spends a lot of his afternoons with Mark, my Sil and Bill and leading the charge on getting Laura to accept a bulk payment and therapy but don't want her in their life. Mill and Phil and estranged so far and my husband goes to therapy once a week and slowly recovering. And before it starts, yes we know Laura is a victim of her mom but does it give her a right to re-traumatize my husband? I still stand with my husband and probably will be called the worst of the worst but some advice was very good the first few times so that's why I came back. I hope you guys like this video. If you did make sure like, comment, share and subscribe the channel James Stories.